The cover art of Halo 2 is probably one of the best and most instantly recognisable cover arts of any game in history. But what you're looking at is a lie, and not for the reasons you might think. Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and if you cast your mind back to the early 2000s, you'll remember going into game stores and browsing through the different games that were displayed, looking at their front covers and seeing if that was enough to pull you in and get you to pick it up and turn the case over and read the blurb and get a feel for what the game was about. The early 2000s were all about judging a game by its cover. And in the early 2000s, there was not many games that stood out quite the same way as Halo 2. The cover was a blaze of red and orange clouds and fire, a futuristic city, alien-looking crafts, and a large, armoured figure holding two weapons in what can only be described as the quintessential hero glamour shot. The muscular green plating of his suit and the mirrored gold impassive visor, revealing nothing about the occupant of this suit beyond the fact that they were evidently a badass. It was an era in gaming that is much less pronounced, in fact is all but disappeared nowadays because of all the digital downloads that we can now have instant access to for our games, which most certainly detracts from the tactile and visceral experience of holding a game case, looking at the artwork, opening the case up and finding the game manual inside that was a curated piece of content in and of itself that not only gave you a glimpse into the universe you were about to occupy, but essential information on how to survive. And it is an era that many of us still look back upon with immense fondness, though it is bittersweet. However, Halo 2's cover art differs from many of the other games in that it was retroactively granted lore status within the Halo universe. The cover arts of all of the other games are just cover arts for all of the other games, but the cover art for Halo 2 was a photograph taken of the Master Chief by a wartime photographer within the city of Mombasa in the 26th century. But the image is a lie. As revealed in the audio drama that released just prior to Halo 5 Guardians called Hunt the Truth, wartime journalist Benjamin Giroux recanted his very brief interactions with the Master Chief on the field of battle on that harrowing day that the Covenant finally found Earth. The picture that we know so well is a heavily doctored image. The image itself shows Chief posing with two SMGs in hand, with fires and explosions raging in the city behind him and Covenant phantoms occupying the skies. He is stood powerfully, ready to pounce into action, triumphantly amongst the debris of Mombasa. It's an image that conjures heroism, Chief's unwavering loyalty to humanity, and how powerful of a soldier he truly is, inspiring hope and lifting the morale of all those who see it. However, that is not the story that the original image that was captured was telling. Ben Giroux worked closely with a broadcasting agency that had only one client, the Office of Naval Intelligence. And his primary role during his job here was to alter and manipulate the narrative of news, to play into the broader ONI propaganda that humanity were doing strikingly better in the Human Covenant War than they really were, with ONI's thoughts being that if humanity truly understood how desperately they were losing, all morale amongst the fighting forces of the UNSC would evaporate, and humanity's extinction would be sealed. It's the very same motivation that led the Office of Naval Intelligence to reveal the Spartan 2 program to the masses, revealing massive armoured warriors fighting for humanity who have never lost on the battlefield, almost single-handedly pushing the Covenant onslaught back. It also led ONI to implement ONI Directive 930, which is to say that no Spartan should ever be listed as killed in action, and should only ever be listed as missing in action, MIA, or wounded in action, WIA, so that it could be said that no Spartan ever died in combat. This directive and the propaganda that surrounded it helped boost morale across UNSC forces to keep the majority of the UNSC fighting against the Covenant. And it succeeded in staving off a morale collapse that would have inexorably led to our extinction. And Ben Giroux's job was to assist in that propaganda, to doctor the news, to make the news going on in the outer colonies of the war against the Covenant more palatable and more hopeful than it truly was. And the image that we see of Chief on the cover art of Halo 2 is no exception. The true reality of that image shows Chief in a similar pose. The image is slightly blurry and looks slightly shaken, likely a response of the photographer flinching to explosions and combat going on around them while this photo was taken. It shows a Marine lying dead next to the Chief. The sky's absolutely filled with phantoms and banshees, with the looming silhouette of a CAS-class assault carrier just behind the Chief, with much more damage and explosions going on around the Chief than was initially implied in the doctored image. When the original image was shown to the Office of Naval Intelligence, they made advisories on what needed to be fixed, what needed to be changed, and how the image needed to be doctored. Amongst reducing the haze, bringing Chief into focus, slightly repositioning his arm to improve the silhouette, removing excess blood and grime from the Chief's armour, reducing the quantity of banshees in the sky, removing entire explosions and cropping out large portions of the skybox and city to reduce the apparent damage, as well as completely removing the CAS-class assault carrier. All of these adjustments gave us the image that we know so intimately, but does not represent the truth of this situation. And that would normally be a video in and of itself, but it goes further than this. If you play through the levels that take place on Earth in Halo 2, you will likely immediately notice the problem. The problem is that we never actually play any part of any mission on Earth where a war photographer snaps a photo of us. In fact, the city, both old and new Mombasa, is decidedly abandoned. Aside from the Master Chief and the Marines, there are no other humans in old and new Mombasa. There are no workers, there are no civilians, there are seemingly not even any police officers. And the reason for this is that while the Master Chief was on Cairo Station, helping to repel the boarders, Covenant ships blew past the debris field of the Athens and the Malta and headed directly for Earth, ignoring all of the other defense forces and UNSC forces in orbit. And as Regret's carrier descended upon the city fell into chaos and was almost immediately evacuated. Trains and tram lines immediately evacuated people from the city centre. Ships left New Mombasa and moved across the water to Old Mombasa and continued to evacuate people thereafter. Pelicans landed to evacuate civilians, while simultaneously dropping off Marine forces. In the intervening time between the ship blasting through the Malta's debris field and the Inamba-clad arriving in New Mombasa and dispatching the Chief and other Marines aboard the Pelicans, almost all of the city was entirely evacuated, thus leaving the Chief and the Marines to walk through a majoritively abandoned city centre. Yes, there may have been civilian populations on the outlying districts of Mombasa. Yes, there may have still been civilians in hiding, choosing not to evacuate the city. But majoritively speaking, the city was empty. So then you have to ask the question, where was the photographer? Where was Ben Giroux? But indeed, I don't think we can even really say that it's just that we didn't see him, but that he was there and did snap the photograph. The photograph itself is very obviously staged. Chief is in a glamour pose, so to speak. So let's just put that into context. The Master Chief, a Spartan 2 super soldier and humanity's greatest warrior, is in a city under siege by the Covenant, and every moment that he doesn't act, the Covenant destroy more of Earth, they kill more civilian lives, they kill more military serving men and women's lives. Do we really think the Master Chief would be comfortable standing around looking pretty while Earth is under siege so that some ONI appointed photographer can snap a glamour shot? No, he wouldn't. In fact, it goes against almost every fibre of his being. Even on the Cairo station, when Chief and Johnson are being commended for their actions at Alpha Halo, Chief makes it abundantly clear that he is uncomfortable with the fact that there are cameras on Cairo station reporting the return of the Master Chief and his commendation across the news.
You told me there wouldn't be any cameras.
And you told me you were gonna wear something nice. Folks need heroes, Chief, to give them hope.
He's a Spartan 2 super soldier, one of humanity's greatest warriors. He simply wants to serve, to do his duty, as all the Spartans do. The Spartans were never trained on public relations. It's not in their nature to pose and to look cool so that certain pictures and certain angles can be taken for ONI propaganda. They are highly trained soldiers, military assets, whose primary interest is fighting for humanity and destroying our enemies. The Chief would never willingly stand around in a badass pose while people are dying so that Ben can take a photo. The eerie thing is, there is a comic that covers Ben Giraud and his activity in Mombasa when the city was attacked, in the Halo graphic novel. And in it, while he sat on a train on his way into work in old Mombasa, he sees an image of the Master Chief in that pose being shown on the screens on the backs of the seats of the train. And it is commented in some of the text that that is some of his work. But this was before the attack on Mombasa. In fact, even if the rest of the comic was a flashback and that particular scene was him at some point after his evacuation from Mombasa, where did he find the time to snap that image, send it to ONI, get it approved or disapproved for adjustments, and then doctor it for final publication? The suggested narrative looks at a timeline where Ben basically recaps what his life was like in Mombasa before it was attacked. Then, Mombasa was attacked, and he was injured whilst aboard a train that was struck by either debris falling from the fight happening in orbit above Mombasa, or by weapons fired by the Covenant ships as they came down. He then woke up in a hospital shortly thereafterwards, where he then aligned himself with a group of resistance fighters, who were planning to simply hold off the Covenant forces until the Marines could fully mobilise. And while he was on the streets, he translated a command from one of the elites that revealed that the Covenant were looking for something called the Ark. Upon this discovery, a Marine insisted that he get out of the city with that recording so that valuable intelligence could get back to High Command and they could start preparing a counter to whatever that plan was. As it is, right when he's about to evacuate, he hands off that recording to a little girl and tells them to hand it to the authorities when she gets to the other side. And then he remains on the island of New Mombasa. And it is at some point after this that the Master Chief arrives, and thus then would give him the opportunity to take that photo. But then, how would that same posed photo be showing on the screens of the chairs aboard the train that he was riding before he got injured? Even if he just simply recreated that image with the Master Chief in Mombasa, we never saw Ben Giraud when we were in Mombasa. We never saw a war photographer taking a photo of us, and it goes against every single fibre of the Master Chief's being to just stand around and look pretty while someone takes a photo. And he even demonstrates his discomfort with cameras when he's on the Cairo. So that cannot be the Master Chief. The image on the front of Halo 2's case cannot be Spartan 117, which leaves one simple but volatile question. Who was the Spartan pictured? It certainly wasn't the Chief, so is there another Spartan that is posing as the Chief for these kinds of images, for these glamour shots, this propaganda? Does the Master Chief have a doppelganger? And if he does, it has to be another Spartan. So who the hell is it? I hand this question over to you. I'd like to hear your opinions in the comments down below. I may even make a follow-up video to this one, going through some of the best comments. So, I look forward to what you have to say, and until next time. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, consider hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out on future content, and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. It really does help the channel out significantly. Feel free to pop a comment below on anything you'd like me to cover next, and before signing off I just want to give a shout to my Patreon supporters, Spartan10148, my singular contender class ancilla, Falcon, Jordan and Poseidon, the metarchs of my facility, Sylphia, Ashley, Esoteric, Spartan 1029 and Chris Allen, my dutiful monitors, Darian, Legion, Labrat, Spartan 137, Chris, Element 0, J3, Mr. Keys, Gunslinger Cult, Evermore's Personal Devil, Scion Esports, and Saber, my diligent sub-monitors, my dominating fleet of Strato Sentinels, and my loyal enforcers, and all other patrons who continue to support the channel. I can't thank you guys enough. Big props to my Tier 0 YouTube members, Spartan 137, Talia, Fenrir, Bornstella, and Jimbo, and all other YouTube members keeping the installation running on that glorious vacuum energy. And if you really love what I'm doing here, consider supporting the channel via the links in the description. Much love, take it easy, and find peace in the domain.